Welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, October 20th, 2020, and today marks yet again another milestone till the election. We are 2 weeks away, and I'm going to be bringing you my updated 2020 presidential election forecast. So, a number of things have pretty much stayed the same, and some states will see a change in the characterization. As we get closer to the election, certain states are going to start pushing further to their political parties, just because there's less time for the opposition party to overcome that lead at this point. Keep in mind, every election prediction is a snapshot if the election was held today. I am not predicting uncertainty, but I am accounting for it. So let's get started with all of the safe states. I do have another state moving into the safe Democratic column, and that is the state of Oregon. I previously had it as safe, and then I moved it down to likely around a month ago, and it will return to the safe Democratic column. In hindsight, I should have realized that Biden absolutely will outperform Hillary Clinton not only in the swing states, but also in safe Democratic states and traditionally Republican states, thus states such as Texas and Georgia becoming hyper-competitive this election season. So Oregon, which was a double-digit win for Clinton, will move into the safe column. For the rest of the safe states, not much changes. I mean, we're just working with the same 182 electoral votes that we normally work with, or 188, now that I moved Oregon in, and then I believe I normally throw in Maine at large, but that's not what I will be doing this time around. Maine at large, I think, is a little bit lower than safe for the Democrats, but we have 188 electoral votes for Joe Biden. Moving on to where Donald Trump is doing well, we have some other states to take a look at. We have solid Republican states such as Utah, which surprisingly enough, I want to talk about Utah for just a moment, just because of the fact that Hillary Clinton received around 1/4 of the votes in Utah, roughly 27%. And this time around, Biden is expected to get roughly 41% of the vote. Now, Evan McMullin, if you remember that name, it's because he ran for president back in 2016 against Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. He was on the ballot in a number of states, but Utah was his most memorable performance because he was able to garner roughly 20% of the vote as a never-Trump Republican. Donald Trump won Utah by a plurality 4 years after Mitt Romney won the state with 75% of the vote. This time around, with Evan McMullin's endorsement, Joe Biden is expected to gain 14% more support than what Hillary Clinton received. While the Mormon population is traditionally very conservative, this state in particular could give Joe Biden a much larger share than any Democrat in modern political history. But let's move past that. It's still a safe state regardless. I just wanted to point that out because I think that is just honestly very fascinating, to say the least. So I'm characterizing all of these safe states and districts. You can't ignore the congressional districts. I'm missing some of these states. I don't know why. I mean, by default, I normally characterize most of these states as safe for certain political parties, but Donald Trump hasn't exactly solidified his base in some of these states. Now, he is going to do well, obviously, in Mississippi and Kansas and Montana. The reason why they're not safe is because Donald Trump will probably win them by less than 15%. If you're new to my channel and you don't know how my characterizations work, check out the description. It'll outline where the percentages lie. Pretty much anywhere between 1% and 0% of a lead for a certain candidate is tilt, 1 to 5 is lean, 5 to 15 is likely, anything 15 plus is safe. It's been that way for 3 years, and I'm going to be sticking with it. So, 76 electoral votes for Donald Trump. I don't really think I've missed a singular state. If you had asked me what the amount of safe electoral votes for Trump, if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said 125. It is now down to 76. So keep that in mind as we proceed through this election prediction, that we are working in an environment where Biden has maintained a lead, a double-digit lead nationally, for the past 10 days, 11 days. Actually, right around this point, October 7th was when the double-digit lead set in, rounding upwards, and then it's been 13 days since then, and the lead hasn't exactly dropped too heavily. Yesterday, it was 11 points. Today, it's 10. But that's obviously a very strong lead for Joe Biden. Nothing to worry about for the Biden campaign if the election was held today. We have 14 days of uncertainty, and actually at this point in time in 2016, for reference, Hillary Clinton had the same exact chance at winning the presidency as Joe Biden, an 87% chance. So that's a testament to anything. Anything can really change in the final 2 weeks. Now, 2016 was an exception, I would say, looking at history. 2016 was probably one of the largest swings in the final 2 weeks or stretch of a presidential election campaign. But again, this is 2020. Weirder things have happened. So let's go into the likely Democratic states. These aren't too surprising. It gives Joe Biden the outright victory. I will tell you that. Virginia goes likely for the Democrats. Colorado goes likely as well. and the entire Rust Belt. Now, the reason why I truly do believe that the Rust Belt will give Joe Biden likely margins of victories. I mean, talk about how Biden saved parts of the Rust Belt, whether it was the auto bailout or, literally just being from the state of Pennsylvania. He focused a lot of the Obama administration's efforts on this entire region itself, which is the same exact reason why they overwhelmingly elected them the first time on those promises. Promises made, promises kept. Ring a bell. 2012, they easily soared to re-election. Now, if any year was to be a year where the GOP should have won the Rust Belt, it would have been 2012. And I'm not giving all of what Obama did to Joe Biden, but Biden being from Pennsylvania definitely helped in 2008. And also him pushing Obama and being the literal vice president to the president that supposedly saved this entire auto industry, especially in Michigan. Well, they are likely to repay this guy with their votes. Now, I'm not saying that Biden will receive Obama-like numbers. I do believe that Obama made the Rust Belt seem bluer than it is, because that's just how it was. Prior to Obama, the Rust Belt was not the blue wall. Sure, it had been voting for the Democrats, but it was never exactly safe. Take a look at the 2000 and 2004 elections in the Rust Belt. Those were some of the closest states. It wasn't until 2008 when McCain literally said, I'm giving up Michigan, Obama can have it, which was when Michigan became likely. But besides that, Biden is starting to see a return of Obama-esque voters, Trump voters that voted for Obama both times that are now returning to the Biden column. Now, the majority of those Obama-Trump voters are staying with him, but you need 100% of them to win. Trump needs 100% of those Obama-Trump voters to win. He only has 54% right now. So unless that changes in the final 2 weeks, the Rust Belt is flipping back and flipping back by larger margins than what Donald Trump won in 2016. Even if you do support President Trump, you have to acknowledge that the Rust Belt went to him very, very narrowly. If you know a single person who has wavered in their support of Donald Trump, it is very unlikely that that is counteracted by any support he has gained, because his approval rating has certainly taken a dip. The way that coronavirus is happening right now, the way that he's disapproved of compared to the approval of Gretchen Whitmer or Tony Evers or Tom Wolf, whoever it is. I mean, we're working in a scenario where the Democratic governors are being approved of way higher, and while Joe Biden isn't currently governing, they may like a Democrat in office because of the way that they're handling COVID-19. Because Donald Trump's approval rating is abysmal in terms of how he's handling COVID-19, it's hard for me to say, that used to be his attribute. Back in March, if you asked me, his approval rating was plus 11 nationwide in terms of how he's handling COVID-19. It's minus in double digits. I don't know the exact number, but it's pretty much swung over 20% from where it was in March. So that's, again, besides the point. We're moving past the Rust Belt. Now we can move into some other states that I'm now characterizing as likely for the Democratic Party. 2 states, 1 district. The first state is Nevada, which puts Joe Biden over the top. And then the next state is the state of New Hampshire. These 2 states are likely, no pun intended, to go likely for Joe Biden. I mean, the margins here are very strong for Biden's campaign. While I normally characterize them as lean, just because they are traditionally swing states, I have to reverse that mindset because this is not a traditional year. John Kasich said it best. Would you ever imagine a former Republican hopeful speaking at a Democratic convention? And I know that this election may seem as if the numbers are inflated in favor of Joe Biden, but you do have to ask yourself, Biden currently leads by double digits in New Hampshire. He leads by 7% in Nevada, a state that traditionally underestimates Democratic support for the past 8 years. If you're down by 7 in a state where you should be performing better, Trump was up in Nevada on Election Day in 2016. If I need to remind you, Nevada, Trump was up. I want to reiterate that point. That's just showing, not only there, but 2018, the Republicans were supposed to win the governorship. In the Senate election, 2016, same deal. In the House races there. Whatever it is, Republican support is overestimated. And yet, Biden still runs ahead by 7 points. In New Hampshire, I really should have never characterized it as lean. I shouldn't have moved it down because we have a lot less time for uncertainty to lie in. And if it was held today, I would say New Hampshire goes 7, 8, 9, possibly even 10% in favor of Biden. So that puts Biden at 276. He wins the presidency, but for his campaign, they're going to be happy about this. It doesn't change much from there. Trump's numbers don't exactly skyrocket. Obviously, he's going to win bigger states, but he's not going to really come as close as Hillary Clinton did 4 years ago. So let's get into the likely Republican states. These aren't too surprising. Montana, Kansas, Alaska. Kansas actually moved out of safe, which is now down to likely. Missouri, Indiana, Mississippi, South Carolina. Why are these states likely? And also Nebraska's 1st district. Why are these states and district likely? Well, you can see we're back up to that 125. All of these states and districts were considered safe a year ago. But why are they likely? Biden is doing better. Trump is doing worse. Indiana and Missouri were likely states in 2012. They only recently became safe Republican states, and a 4 or 5 point swing would move them back down. South Carolina and Alaska were likely states 4 years ago. I don't see that changing if Trump hasn't gained support. And in Mississippi and Montana, again, traditionally likely states, moved over to be safe in 2016. Again, a significant shift, but not enough that Joe Biden is competitive, just enough that it's not safe. That is very likely in both of these states. In Nebraska's 1st district, for whatever reason, hasn't exactly been as solid for the GOP for this election as one might think. So we're at 125 for Trump, 276 for Biden. We have 137 toss-up electoral votes to decide the rest. So let's get into it. Now that Donald Trump has 125, I am going to move into the lean Republican states. Spoiler alert, there's only 2. Now, I forgot to characterize Maine at large as likely for the Democratic Party, but again, it doesn't change the numbers too heavily. I mean, it's 2 electoral votes, but the lean states are, if you can guess them, Texas for 1, that's 38 electoral votes, and then the next state is the state of Iowa. I have moved Iowa from being tilt for the GOP to being lean for the GOP. This is a movement in favor of the Republican Party. Now, we've seen shifts in other states, but Iowa in particular, we probably will see Donald Trump win it by a larger than 1% margin. While Teresa Greenfield may be the favorite in the Senate election, Joni Ernst is likely to run behind Donald Trump. Donald Trump could very well win it on the presidential level while it goes to the Democrats on the Senate level. So when we're looking at Iowa in specific, I really think that this is just a state that when you take a closer look at it, you have to realize that while it did overwhelmingly go for Trump, they were 2 Obama states. I mean, this state has always been voting with number 1 Ohio and has been very close in years past. Now, this election is probably going to make Iowa within 1 or 2%. And while I do think that Donald Trump is the favorite because of his overwhelming support in 2016, Joe Biden has definitely made inroads. And it only really matters for the Senate election and the House elections. There's 4 House elections up. 3 out of the 4 are competitive. There's a Senate election up. Absolutely competitive, and it is competitive on the presidential level, but it probably won't matter for Biden. It's 6 electoral votes, and while the Biden campaign would love to have it, Donald Trump, I think, is still the favorite. Now, Texas doesn't traditionally need much speaking for. Normally, you would just throw it on as a safe Republican state, but that's just not the case. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, for whatever reason, have an appeal to the people of Texas that have made this state shift heavily. In 2012, Mitt Romney won this state by 16 points. The last time Biden was on the ballot, they lost Texas by 16%. Fast forward to 2016. Donald Trump wins Texas by a mere 9%. Obviously, 9% is traditionally strong for a swing state, but it should not have been competitive. It should not have even been less than safe. While the entire country, and I mean the entire country, with the exception of maybe 4 states, they all shifted to the right. Donald Trump's support increased. That was not the case in the Sunbelt region, in those swing states where it mattered. Arizona, Texas, Georgia. These are all 3 states that Romney won by larger margins than Donald Trump in 2016. Add an additional 2 years to the timeline. Arizona goes blue on the Senate level. Texas is within 2% for the Democrats. Georgia's governor election is within 2% of the Democrats. So, these 3 states, super competitive this time around. Donald Trump is the favorite in 2 out of the 3. But still, these states should never have really been competitive from the start. That is a testament to the Biden campaign and to the amount of support that Donald Trump has lost from 4 years ago, and also the Republican base from 8 years ago. Mitt Romney has become publicly enemy number 1 for the Trump base, but they all voted for him 8 years ago. And I just really want to point that out. The same people that they all voted for 12 years ago, John McCain's wife and family has come out in staunch support of Joe Biden. That's a reason why these traditionally Republican voters, which gave both McCain and Romney larger margins of victory, are now much more obliged to support Biden than had those endorsements not come through, or just if there was another Republican nominee on the ticket. So 169 for Trump, 278 for Biden. Where does Biden currently have lean states? I actually forgot to characterize another likely Democratic district, and it is Nebraska's 2nd district. I think that this is also very fascinating. This is a district that voted for Romney by 7%, then for Trump by 2%, and now it looks like it's going to go by a pretty solid margin to Joe Biden. But it's one electoral vote out of 538. We need to get through this video. Let's move on to the lean Democratic states. Well, I'd consider the state of Arizona a lean Democratic state. I'm moving another state out of the lean Democratic column, and that is the state of Florida. But Arizona, specifically, I mean, Biden is leading in Arizona. It's not the largest margin. It's a 4-point margin. And also, if you take a look at the expected vote share here, Biden is probably going to win Arizona. Now, I'm not just basing it purely off 538, but you can't ignore the signs that 2016 was a drastically smaller margin than 2012 for Donald Trump. In the same ballot in 2016, John McCain overwhelmingly won that Senate election, and now the same seat is up this time around, and the Republicans are running behind that same exact seat by 8 points. Arizona has Biden up by a pretty substantial margin. In 2016, Trump was up by an even larger margin than what he actually won by. So if anything, the polls overestimate Republicans. That point was reaffirmed in 2018 when Martha McSally led on Election Day and lost by 2%, a 3-point swing in just one day. So Arizona, like Nevada, like Colorado, like New Mexico, like Texas, all overestimate Republican support. For whatever reason, this region, very weird with that, but that benefits Biden, especially if he's leading in 4 out of these 5 states that I just mentioned. So that puts Biden at 290. The rest of the states are going to be considered to be tilt. Now, I said rest of the states because Maine's 2nd district, I'm going to remain as a lean Republican district. That is a district that went for Obama twice, never broke from Maine until 2016. But I do think that, Donald Trump is going to retain that support. Won't be as large as it was 4 years ago, but winning it is winning it regardless. So 78 electoral votes decided by a tilt margin. So that means I'm really only super confident in Joe Biden winning 290 of these electoral votes, more so 278. But realistically, does that matter? Obviously, the Democrats want a mandate, and they want to win the United States Senate. But at the same time, if they win back the White House, it doesn't really matter what the margin is. Only really matters for down ballot races. But Biden being at 290 is not bad at all, and he is going to expand that lead. So while Donald Trump remains at 170, we're going to characterize a Trump state, then a Biden state, then a Trump state, and then finish off with the Biden state. So I already told you guys that Florida was going to Biden, so that will be the first state that goes to Joe Biden. But Ohio is a state where I think will go by a very small margin and break its 60-year correct streak. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Ohio has correctly voted with the presidential election winner for 60 years straight. That could very well be broken. According to my prediction, it will be broken. But don't underestimate it. I'm characterizing it as a state within 1%. Within 1%. 538 gives it to Biden. The polling averages give it to Biden. But realistically, in my opinion, I believe that Donald Trump will see a small bump that's marginal enough that pushes him over the top. It's a narrow victory, but it's a victory regardless. Now, for Biden, like I said, I moved Florida from being lean for the Democrats down to tilt. This state is exceptionally close and has narrowed up in recent days. But Biden still maintains his lead. And when I say narrow up, I don't mean as if it's within 1%. In Florida right now, that's not Florida, Biden is still up 3 points. However, he led by 5 on my last prediction, and Florida is just Florida, to put it plainly. And it could just go either way. But Joe Biden, I think today, is the favorite. We could see a less than 1% victory for Biden. But again, say this all the time, margins don't matter. It's a winner-take-all system. Then the next state for Donald Trump is the state of Georgia, which means by default, the state of North Carolina will go to Biden. Georgia itself is a very Republican state at heart, but for whatever reason, they have shown their firm opposition to Donald Trump's election in 2016. I mean, they voted for him, but not by a large margin. It should have been a large margin. 2018 proved that the Atlanta suburbs were really driving this entire Democratic support in the state. We're not seeing much change in Georgia. I think it'll be closer than 2016, but I still think that Donald Trump will be able to retain on those outstanding counties and other parts of the suburbs in order to win the state and hold on to it. But these traditionally Republican voters are a little bit more open to voting for Joe Biden. So Georgia goes red, but North Carolina goes blue. North Carolina, the last time it went to a Democrat was Barack Obama in 2008. It was a 14,000 vote victory. It was not large, but Joe Biden could win by roughly the same amount. North Carolina and Florida are the two states I consider to be tilt states. They could technically go either way, but if the election was held today, I would place my bets on that North Carolina and Florida go to Biden, Ohio and Georgia go to Trump. So the final map really doesn't change too much. I mean, we don't see any race rating changes. We are starting to see the election level out because there's a lot less time for uncertainty and a lot less time for things to, fundamentally change about this race. But Biden today stands at 334 to Trump's 204. We have 2 weeks to go. Things can change, but I ask this all the time. The question is, will they change? So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord link for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my other 2020 election predictions that began in January 2020. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.